All right, welcome back to the Shooting Cars podcast. We have an awesome podcast for you today. My good friend Tim is returning to the podcast. He actually did a podcast a long time ago. It was actually one of our first real interactions as friends, but I think our friendship has grown a lot since that first podcast. And he's really coming on to talk about his experience on cars and bids. He recently sold a low mileage Nissan Sentra. It was the Spec V or V-Spec. SER. I reviewed it. It was the yellow one here on the channel. That's what the thumbnail is. And apparently some drama was raised. I know a little bit of what happened, but I don't know the full story. So he's coming on the podcast to share that. Tim is absolutely awesome. He is the Larry Chen of the Midwest. He is the #1 photographer for automotive things here in the Chicagoland area. He's absolutely awesome. He's a good friend of mine, and I can't wait to share this with you guys. If someone wants to timestamp, or the timestamps will be in the description. If they aren't already, if someone would like to timestamp the podcast, that would be greatly appreciated. But let's get on with the episode. Welcome back to the podcast. You're a podcast alum, Tim.
Alum,
yeah. You've been on the podcast before. You're
gotcha.
Alumni of the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been literally 3 years, 2.5, 3
probably,
years.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Wow.
I have a lot to share. I am very excited to hear your cars and bids story.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if we want to jump right into that or talk about what we just did, which was review your SRT. Your 300
we can
SRT.
start whichever way. I mean, while we're on the topic, we could just talk about the 300. I mean,
yeah, I love that car. So this will come out before the review. The review will come out, I want to say like December 8th or something.
Okay. Cool.
What's the story behind that car?
So the story is I've always been a big fan of the 300, even the old, like really, really, reminiscent of their era 300s.
Right, yeah.
The mid to late 2000s ones. I just loved those, and I actually was like considering buying like a pre-Eagle cylinder head 5.7, and I didn't know anything about the valve train, camshaft issues. I just knew I loved the car. And I also knew about the SRT version, and I loved that one even more so. But one day, I'm just sitting in the living room watching season 5 of Breaking Bad, and next thing you know, Walter White pulls in the driveway with the 300 SRT, and I lost my mind. And
I actually didn't know that's where you discovered it, was from the show.
It absolutely was, because there's almost no coverage on it anywhere else.
Yeah.
They don't accept certain modifications very well, so there's no like underground tuner scene for them. They're just kind of a weird alternative SRT product that was only lasted for a 3-year period. And I love the car, so I Google it immediately. 60 grand. And when I'm in high school, I mean, there's a lot of fortunate people out there that can get that sort of thing as their first car. It wasn't going to be me. And I wanted it so bad, but I was like, okay, well, that's chalked. Maybe I can get a 300C or something. But I never ended up getting it. I had like a rear-wheel drive Jeep Liberty as my first car. And up until about 2 years ago, I was working for a photo company that worked for dealers, and I was actually doing photos at the Naperville Lexus dealership as one of like the customers, just general inventory photos that were done with like a phone, like a work phone.
Yeah.
And they had a Charger RT on trade, like a 2012, and it had like big 22 Viper SRT 10 replica wheels. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like those,
I know the exact ones. Yeah.
And they looked so goofy. They were poking like crazy because they were like, I think they may have been 305s. They were huge. But I drove it, and I'm like, I actually like this. I miss these cars because I almost bought my parents' 07 Charger V6. I just like the size and the kind of like, just the presence of the car.
I was just about to say they have a presence.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing with those cars.
Yeah.
They have sort of that gravitas.
Right, exactly. And basically what happened after that was I was like, well, how much are these? And I Googled it. I'm like, really? That's it? I can totally work really hard and save my money and get one of these and maybe finance a very small amount or something and get one. But I'm like, well, I like the 300s more than the Chargers. So how much is a 300C? And I was like, wow, they're about roughly the same price for a 300C, maybe a little less for a 5.7. And I'm thinking, well, what is the difference between a $15,000 to $18,000 car and a low $20,000 SRT? I'm going to go all the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to get what I want.
You might as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I started looking into it, and I found out the SRTs, especially at the time with the market being pre-COVID and pre-crazy, they were pretty like around low 20s to mid to upper 20s for really low mileage cars. And I was like, I'm going to start saving like crazy and do this thing. And I had an experience with a local dealership. I believe it was a Napleton Dodge dealership. They had a white one in, and they wanted like $30,000, but it had like 27,000 miles, and it was still under the 7-year 100,000 mile powertrain warranty that you could have added on to the purchase.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to work out the deal, and I had a good down payment and some reasonably established credit. So I was like, oh, if I take like a 9-10% interest rate on the finance amount, I'll be fine. Man, those guys are hustlers over there. My personal experience, my opinion, my experience was bad, and I would never go there to purchase a vehicle. And I truly mean that, even after all this time later. They came back with a 16.6% interest rate for $660 a month for 6 years. When realistically, when you do the math, it should have been very low fives, like $520. I had a $5,000 down payment with a vehicle trade-in for maybe $1,000 if I'm lucky.
What did you trade?
My old Volvo. But I
forgot about the Volvo.
Yeah,
oh, man.
that was my intermittent car, and I'll tell you what, I don't talk about that much, but it was bulletproof. It never failed me.
About that
never.
Volvo.
It never.
It was missing a front grille, right?
Well, something happened. We won't.
Yeah, we don't need to get.
We
into
don't need
that.
to get into details.
I feel like we might have covered that on the first podcast too.
I may have still had my grill at that time.
Well, I remember. I don't know, because I remember you sold it to someone in the community, right?
Yeah, I sold it to someone. Man, things have changed. Someone I used to, an ex-friend of mine's son, and I even let him do monthly payments on it to me because I knew him and I knew his father, and like maybe 2 months after him paying me off fully for like $1,400. I mean, I was doing a huge favor for him, and I didn't mind, right? Because I had already had the 300 at the time. He totaled it. It was someone else's fault, but the car got totaled.
Oh no! Okay, dang.
But it's a shame. But after that experience with that dealership, I was so pissed off that like I was just really discouraged, and I just remember sitting there, playing Xbox. In my boxers, and all of a sudden I'm just scrolling. I'm like, man, there are none of these for sale, and I'm like, something just was ringing in my head, and I remember, and then the memory came up, and it was visit my column on autotrader.com/oversteer. I'm like, Doug, I'm gonna look on AutoTrader, and that's exactly what I did. I looked on AutoTrader, and there was one within 500 miles. There was one 300 SRT for sale, and it was the one I ended up. It was a black 2014 with about 135K on it, and I'm like, the price is weird.
Wow, you put 40K on that car?
42 and like 43, yeah.
Wow.
In about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but it was a bit interesting. So I'm like, the miles are too high, and there's got to be something weird with the title because the price is too red flag. Pass. A week later, it's itching me. I'm like, I look on AutoTrader again. Still, there's only one for sale in the area within 500 miles. Yeah. At this time, they were so impossible to find. And it was the same car. I'm like, well, it looks really clean. And I start clicking on it. I'm like looking. I'm like, well, maybe. Because my main concern was the camshaft lifter valve train problems. Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, if I go lower miles, you can dodge that. Fast forward to now, and I know my friend Chris, who has a 2012, he had a camshaft, or he had a hydraulic roller on the lock, and the cam beat the lifter or the roller until it wore the cam down, and it nearly dropped a valve in the bottom end at 30,000 miles.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like
I knew it was an issue, but not that crazy.
It can happen,
of an issue.
and I actually, it's funny. I ended up reading it somewhere on the internet that it can happen as early as 30, and I just couldn't believe it when my friend's 2012 did the same. But at the time, that's what I was thinking. And as I'm scrolling through all the photos, I'm like, it's really clean. I don't know. Miles are high. The last photo in the thing is an engine on a stand. I'm like, why would you include an engine on a stand? So I go to the description, and it says, this car had the MDS camshaft failure and dropped a valve and destroyed the original engine. It has a 15,000-mile engine pulled from a Challenger from 2016. I'm just like, oh my God. I started panicking. I emailed them right away. I'm like, please call me right away. Next thing you know, I start working at like 8 o'clock. An hour in, I get a phone call. It's from a Kentucky number because the guy just moved from Kentucky to like out west in Illinois. And he calls me. He's like, hey, man, yeah, you're one of quite a few people that hit me up this week. I'm like, God, if I had only replied a week ago when I saw it for sale.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I have a guy from Chicago that wants to bring me $1,000 to take the listing down. Then he can get the rest of the money. I'm like, dude, this guy's already way ahead. I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm interested. And I think, honestly, if the car is as clean as you say it is, I don't have a problem with the asking price. I really don't, because it was just such a great deal.
Yeah.
For a clean title, I was just like, impossible to get it at this price. And he goes, but you're not hearing me. I don't want to do that. I don't want to take that guy's money. I don't like that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So that gave me the courage to really try and like get like, because it was a little bit early for me financially, and I decided to get a pre-approved loan through a credit union. I ended up getting it for a way better interest rate than the dealer was trying to get me on. And next thing you know, I go out there. Literally a day later, I'm texting and calling the guy all day, and he was probably the best type of guy to buy it from, because he was just super communicative and just very passionate about the car. And he was just like, yeah, man, I promise you, you're going to see it, and it's going to be worth every penny. I swear to God, when I bought that car new, and even to this day, to some extent, people think it's a 40, 50,000 mile car.
Yeah.
Because they have no idea that the chassis now has 177 on it.
Yeah, it's extremely clean. That's why I was so excited to film, and I at least from the footage that I looked at through the little viewfinder, it looks great.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it was so surreal to buy that car. The first day that, like, I bought it, and I'm like, okay, we got the first step of the approval down, and I was just like, my head was just spinning. And then I go to, out west, and the story is a little interesting, because as I'm going out west and I'm like securing all the information, I'm like, I brought a bill of sale for you to sign. And I was with my mom, and it was a bit rainy out, and my mom was like totally not about me flooring it in this car
of course.
to see what's about. And I'm like, dude, I love this thing. But I realized as I got home, I'm like, oh my God, he signed. I did not get a state official bill of sale. I didn't get it from like Jesse Jackson, Jesse
White and the Tumblers.
Yeah. I didn't get the official document from the state. So I'm like, I got to go all the way back out there. And he was cool. He's like, yeah, come on out. Yeah. And it was like about an hour drive. To me, it was worth it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I go all the way out there again. And the guy's like, well, now that your mom's not here, let's go for a real drive. I'm like, yes. So they do like a couple digs, a couple like 50 roll like accelerations. I'm just like, dude, I'm buying this car.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, it's over. I'm sorry, man. Like, I know you love this car, man, but I'm buying this car now.
Yeah.
Like, the owner is like such a cool dude and took incredible care of the car. And
have you ever heard from him since then?
Yeah, we actually communicate once in a while. He bought a C5 Corvette that he's like doing a full engine build on, like a stroker build on.
Have you mentioned him that you're looking to sell it?
I did, and he said, he understands, and he was very cool about it. Unlike some other people recently that I've dealt with, but he was super cool. He's like, hey man, I sold it to you. There's a time for everybody.
Well, I was just curious if he would want to buy it back.
Yeah, when I mentioned him, I was kind of hoping he would but he's kind of really deep in the Corvette.
Yeah.
I think he's moved on from the 300. And it's time for me to move on too, because weirdly enough, after all of the experience I've had, I've taken it up Pikes Peak on Crown Rally West. My friend Elia generously received a Crown Rally entrance slot from his friend who couldn't go for free, and then we entered our car. Elia is the one who basically gave me that, and our friend Warwick gave it to Elia. So thanks to those guys for the experience, because seriously, it's like one of the greatest experiences of driving I've ever
Which
had.
I recently just did Pikes Peak over the summer.
Yeah.
It's gnarly.
Oh, it's gnarly.
Is gnarly.
I overheated on there because...
Engine or brakes?
Engine.
Really? Interesting.
We got up to the temps, something about that motor, it hates altitude. It was not happy with the fuel the whole weekend, throwing false engine codes.
Okay.
And that's more on my previous mechanic that messed up my intake. Because he messed up the sensor,
octane sensor.
Right,
yes?
right.
Okay.
Yeah. Something like that.
Also Colorado is very weird because their octanes are different.
They are.
Which I almost put 85 into my car. 'Cause it just runs on 87. It's just a Mazda.
Right.
But then I was looking at it, I was like, 85? And my girlfriend didn't know the difference.
That's like spicy water.
I was at that point. I was like, "What the heck, no!" So then I ran mid grade the whole trip.
Oh my
we were
gosh.
balling out on mid grade, which is just regular 87.
Which was probably 80. Yeah.
Yeah.
Colorado fuel sucks. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
It put my injectors through hell. I went through an injector in the winter probably because of that fuel, and it just didn't get cleaned out. And but I drove the car and it got like the temps were just increasing, and even in Extalgic's video on it, you can see that we're going up and up and up.
Yeah.
And the temps are climbing, and I'm panicking and freaking out because I'm like, dude, these temps, the needle is getting so close to red. We need to stop. And he's like, no, just keep going. We turn the corner. There's a left lane, a right lane, and a cliff. There's nowhere to pull over. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So we get to the top of the one part, and I'm able to finally find a spot to pull over. The car is yelling at me to shut it off. Mm-hmm. That's a bad point.
Yeah.
That means that the coolant temperatures have eclipsed 250 degrees.
Right.
By the time I had pulled over, it was 254 degrees coolant. Shut down the overflow, spilled coolant out. It was boiling. Just, you could see it in the reservoir boiling. It was crazy.
Wow.
Like, the temperatures that we were at, and thank God for an iron block, right? Because I would have had a warped block
easily
if I had eclipsed 260. And with the ambient temperatures, who knows what that block may have hit when I shut down.
Yeah.
And it was kind of crazy, but I put the car through a lot, and it's been really reliable. I've only gone through, I did preventative ball joints. Tie rods were done before I bought it. I went through a radiator that I blew in the winter that had, mind you, gone through Pikes Peak and 160,000 miles. They're supposed to be replaced every 110.
I just had a voice crack like I was 12. Yeah. Keep talking, Tim.
But they're supposed to be replaced every 110. This was the original radiator.
Wow.
So it went all through Pikes Peak, probably developed a stress crack in the radiator from that time. And then I blew it in some snowy parking lot of a warehouse doing donuts like an idiot. And I have a video I'll send you, and you can see the steam. Because you think, it's just water boiling off my hot tires or something. Or no, that was coolant just spraying all over the snow. That was an interesting moment. And then I went through an AC compressor, radiator, ball joints, injector. And I have a parking sensor I have to replace. That's it. That's all I've ever had to fix on the car. Yeah, and for the abuse that it's gone through. Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, here's the thing. When I say abuse, because I know I'm selling the car, so I got to have a bit of a case for myself when I say abuse. It's been really maintained and driven the way it's been meant to be driven. But I've been maintained it at the standard as well, which is why it's reflected, I think, in the video that you'll have out. Mm-hmm. The quality has maintained at basically the same level of when I bought it. It's ran phenomenally, but it is time to let it go. Yeah, and
there definitely have been cars that I've reviewed, and I'll see them again a year later, and I'm like, oh, things have changed. But I don't know if we mentioned it here on the podcast, we mentioned it in the review, but we shot the rolling footage of it. Actually, now that I think about it, that was the first ever GoPro rolling footage I ever took of a car, but I never used it because this was like a day or two. It was when did you buy the car?
I bought it the night before you filmed that.
But like what month was that? Was that April?
April 15th.
So this was
2020.
A month into lockdown. We still didn't know what was really going on. Yeah. I hadn't seen anyone like in person at this point.
Yeah, you and I were keeping our distance.
Yeah, we kept I drove separately to the car wash, and
Yeah.
we chatted from along the way. But yeah, that was the first ever rolling footage because I was like,
Yeah.
I can't review the car right now.
I
but
felt
let's
bad.
do
I'm like, I
something.
want to give you a ride in this thing. And we're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But
We just didn't know what was going on. I don't even know if masks were really a thing yet, which would have totally changed.
they
I
started
would've-
to become a thing because
Yeah.
what's funny is it was actually 2 weeks before it got federally like recognized as like, hey, it's a pandemic.
Right.
I got an email from my work at the time. They're like, do not wear masks on the property. It freaks out the customers. Then 2 weeks later, everyone's wearing
And
masks.
yeah, still
It's
now,
just, like,
it's still
crazy.
now masks are required. But
Yeah.
it was just a crazy time. And since filming that rolling footage, I might have some pictures of you washing the car.
Yeah.
I might.
It's actually still
God, I
my.
hope-
It's actually still my screensaver on my
Really?
phone. Yeah, because it's just like the perfect type of photo. Yeah, there you go.
Oh no way!
There you go.
That
you can
makes
zoom
me.
in on that. Yeah.
There is nothing that makes me happier than when people use my photos as their screensavers or profile pictures or
Yeah.
something. But since then to now, which is over a year and a half later, I haven't noticed a visible difference in the car besides you got different wheels.
Yep. So I cracked the original ones that apparently are extremely prone to cracking, just kind of on their own, and they were about 150-ish thousand miles on those wheels, and the car has been Illinois owned its entire life.
Yeah, which is
And-
hard on a car.
Hard on a car, but this is the crazy thing. The car had never seen a winter until the one I put it through.
Really?
The underside, I'm not kidding, if you had a lift or something, is ridiculous.
That's awesome.
It looks like a one that you'd find on like a southern state.
When you list it for sale, you should try.
Oh,
to
I'm gonna
get a lift
all the
and-
pictures
Yeah.
because for the price I'm selling it
Yeah.
at, with the swap and the market.
Yeah.
So I'll just say this: I've done a couple of evaluations through things, not for selling like CarMax and everything. They don't like it because of the chassis miles. They lowball the hell out of me. But the market value from Carfax, and I've done a NADA report on my vehicle, both come out to $24,000 is my current market value of the car. I'm selling it for $21,500.
Wow.
And with the condition,
Yeah.
because they don't really specify the condition in my trade-ins. This condition is going to be better than almost anything you find.
Yeah.
And let's put it this way: $22,000 will be the list price. But if you come from this podcast or the review,
I was just
it'll
gonna
be
say, can I get a
21.5.
promo code?
Yeah,
Promo code. I don't know.
Promo code Pradle.
Yeah, that sounds good. I was gonna say, if you'd like to take the car off a jump, I can snap some pictures of the underside.
Oh, that'd be
as you-
great.
Yeah.
That's really
we'll get those black BMX ramps that people had as a
Yeah.
kid that almost every kid lost their life on.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll just lay on the ground. And I'll take pictures
as if
you go
that
over.
little ramp won't disintegrate under my 4,500 pound sedan immediately.
under a shipping container going over it.
Yeah,
But
so
I'm really impressed with that car. You'll get my full thoughts in a full video later on, but I am really impressed with it. I'm going to be sad to see it go.
Yeah, me
I'm very
too.
excited what we talked about, what you might be picking up.
yeah,
We talked off air about it. and
Right.
I'm very excited about that. You'll see that on the channel once you do get that.
yeah. And if
Um,
I were to give any public hint to anyone that was slightly interested in what I'm getting next, there are 4 sedans in season 15, episode 3 of Top Gear. It is one of those 4 sedans in the episode. There's 3 in the main event or the main like challenge episode. There's one on the alternative comparison with the Camaro in that episode. It's one of those 4 sedans.
Which I'm super excited about. I would be excited if they were any of those sedans, but the one that you're picking, I'm very interested in.
It's gotta be the most out of left field choice, I think.
It is. I honestly did not expect you to say what you did. So.
Yeah.
And now I want to talk about your little yellow Skittle that recently sold.
Right.
So that's why I really want to talk to you about this, because I reviewed your 39,000 mile Nissan Sentra SER Spec V or V
Correct.
Spec V. Spec
Damn,
V.
you had it on the head for a second there.
Yeah. And you recently sold it on Cars and Bids.
I did.
So if you want to walk us through that whole.
Yeah.
Because here's the exciting part. I don't know the ending to the story.
Oh yeah, this is
You
good.
were giving me some updates. I was actually down in Atlanta filming some cars, and you were live texting me some updates, which I was excited about. So
So the whole Cars and Bid situation was a bit strange, but I'll back it up to when we bought it, and this is kind of how this spawned. Was I wanted to take a bet. I was like, everything in this class of vehicle is going up in value. in an insane way. Someone paid like $50,000 for a Civic Si.
Early 2000s performance versions of commuter cars,
like with really low miles and crazy colors, like even like, and this isn't really the same thing, but it's similar. An MR2, a second gen MR2
SW20
with like 30,000 miles on it, went for like 50.
Yeah,
and it's just like these weird niche enthusiast kind of cars, subcompact, maybe weird sporty kind of cars, are going up in a big way. And I wanted to take a bit of a bet, and I said, well, no one has set the market on this. We're taking a huge risk, but I want to find the cleanest SER Spec V, which is the B15 generation of Sentra, and I want to see if we can bring it from a general market into a clean market and like a collector market that would kind of appreciate it. And it's kind of funny that within 30 minutes I found the car. By joining B15 groups on Facebook, they all hate me, by the way. They absolutely hate my guts, but there you go. And basically, and for those who are listening, I just flicked off the camera. I basically...
For those of you listening, Tim has actually pulled up a photograph, and he's actually flipping off the photograph and tearing it up.
Yeah,
you can't see that, but he has now duct taped it to a punching bag, and will proceed for the rest of the video.
Yeah, well... Basically, I had a criteria, and I was like, I need the craziest color they had, yellow. I need it spotless, and I need low miles.
Wow, you hit the nail on the head on all three.
And literally, all of those got pretty much, we got on the head. The only thing I would change is if I could get an 02 to 03 with the different bumpers.
Yeah.
I think it would have sold better. Because it looks a little bit cooler than like the facelift. People say the bucktooth looks ugly, and I think it actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, I really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like the last attractive looking Sentra. Then they just got into like these weird eggs.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. The
looks like a
2017 Nismo I did.
Yeah.
Was kind of it looks good, but I think it's making good of a bad situation.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I don't think it's like a good looking car, but it's the good looking version of that Sentra.
I couldn't actually agree more with that. Making good of a bad situation. 100%. And you know, that B15, man, I love that car, but those are the criteria. I ended up joining a group and finding the car for sale with the worst pictures for sale in the world. I mean, just terrible photos. I'll probably send you these too to put them in. They are terrible.
Yeah.
A photo of the roof, a corner of a seat, a photo of the odometer, which was the only picture I needed, and just a bunch of things like that. And you know, but like it was funny because everyone in the comments was saying this was a fake listing, and I'm like, I looked at the profile. And I looked at like some of the photos that were publicly available. It was just like some fishing rod. I'm like, I know the type of guy that owns this car. This is a real listing, and everyone's missing out hard. He had it listed for like $6,500.
Yeah.
And I had communicated with him a couple times. He's a little bit hard to get a hold of at first. But I was like, before I started communicating with him, I'm like, I got to save up some money to get this car. Because I don't feel like putting all my money into this and for us to maybe not make any money at all. And next thing you know, literally the next day in the mail, I get a tax return. And the tax return was a lot more than what I'd expect. I'm like, whoa.
Was it a tax return or was it the stimulus?
It was the tax return.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, that puts me literally one paycheck away from going out to get this car.
Yeah.
And then the following day, another check comes in the mail. It's the stimulus. The first stimulus I did not get. Then the next day in the mail, the second stimulus I didn't get. I'm like, I can buy this car. What's going on?
If you're looking for a sign, there it is.
Yeah, and I wanted to mitigate the risk too, so I even got my friend Andy. I'm like, hey, you go 50-50 with me on this, I guarantee you we'll make money. Yeah. I guarantee it. We promote this right. We do the photos correctly. We can completely change the potential market of this vehicle. And he was like, I'm in. I'm like, perfect. That mitigates the risk completely. He was locked in at about $3,000. He didn't want to go any higher. I'm like, if it comes down to it and the guy's not going to budge, I'm not letting this car walk over $500. Right. And basically his son, the guy owner's son, started communicating with me through his account a lot more. And we flew out to Florida on a partial photo trip that I have collaborated with 312 Motors. Shout out to Mike from 312 Supercars and 312 Motors for their dealership down in Florida. I have some really crazy photos coming of their collection down there very soon. It has been quite some time since my trip, but things have been kind of crazy, and I'm really trying to get down to those photos. But I've got photos of their 812 GTS coming.
Oh, wow.
Their 993 Carrera 4S with the Aero package, and a C63 Black Series, and a few photos of their 550 Maranello.
Wow.
So
yeah,
cars down there, stuff I wasn't able to shoot up
Yeah.
here mostly, but
Yeah.
when they moved down there, I got some good time with them. But part of the trip was to go down there, shoot those cars in the weekend, and then go all the way from Fort Myers area, Naples, to West Palm, which is 2 hours and 15 minutes right across the strait, coast to coast.
Yeah.
And basically what happened is our loaner car was a 32,000 mile E55 AMG from Mike's collection.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
It was
wow.
So he let us use that car the whole weekend, which was awesome. Like,
Yeah.
to have a 32,000 mile E55 for the weekend is
Yeah.
like the photo hoe.
Yeah.
Like hanging out of that thing to get rollers. Like, dude, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, just as a brief note, doing photos in Florida, I'm glad I have been weathered through the storm of Chicago and Illinois roads for being a roller photographer. The roads down there are just silk. I cannot even. They're going to be the best rollers I've ever had.
Yeah.
Because everything I do is handheld. These things are just perfect.
A month or two ago, I spent a couple days down in Miami, and I filmed some stuff, and I agree with you. I even had a slingshot down there.
Really?
One of those Polaris slingshots. And I was like, this is great.
It's great down there.
Yeah, it's great down there. I drove one up here, too, in Illinois, and I'm like, why would you have one here? Although, to be fair, I also burned my back, and my friend burnt her back on because there's no roof, and it's Miami sun. We went to lunch. We had a nice lunch. We come out, and we were sitting there crying.
Really?
Yeah. I have so many slingshot stories. I have so many thoughts on those things.
God.
But anyway, getting back to the silk roads of Florida. Yeah, I agree there.
So basically, we drove the E55 across to go get this car. And mind you, the communication prior to us landing in Fort Myers and then going to Naples overnight and then driving out that next morning to West Palm to pick up the Nissan was the owner said, I'm going to be at a knife show with my own exhibit selling knives. I'm like,
God bless the whole state of Florida.
Oh man, this just gets even better because he's like, yeah, I'm at a knife show. I'll be at a knife show when you come, but I'll have the car there and you can come look at it and probably buy it. And I'm like, perfect. And we had our money and we drove all the way to West Palm. And as I'm getting closer,
did you fly down there with cash?
Yes. It was a bit sketchy.
We've done that before.
It was a bit weird. I mean, the amount we were flying down with was not a whole.
It's
crazy
not
amount.
crazy, but you're still sitting there in, well, at least in my case, economy, and I'm like,
yeah, basically. And we were both kind of sketched out by the whole situation. And basically, the long story short is we go to West Palm, and we're a couple miles away. I see a sign that says 3 miles away, gun show on the right. I'm like, must be a gun show in the area. I keep going. 2 miles away, gun show next right. Oh, okay. Or coming up. I'm like, okay, gun show's getting closer. I'm like, well, I'm expecting to see the knife show sign somewhere.
Yeah, how silly.
1 mile away, half a mile, quarter mile, next right, all gun show. I'm like, this is not a knife show. This is a knife booth at a gun show.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of guns, but my God, was it a culture shock to come out and see deep South Florida type of just people, like tatted up people from the deep South of Florida next to like super like swamp conservative type of truck driving people all walking in total camaraderie with firearms out.
Yeah.
walking in with drum mags and like it was crazy.
You also have to remember, the listener, we come from Illinois where we do have concealed carry, but like
Yeah.
gun shows aren't a thing.
No, because they're just legislated out. Or
Yeah.
they're very deep, like in maybe central Illinois.
Maybe,
you know,
yeah,
or
but
just somewhere around there. But like up here, where like it's just not a thing.
Right.
And like I said, I've been around weapons. Like I'm not afraid of guns.
Right,
but
yeah.
man, was it just like funny
Yeah.
to see that stuff. And like I met the guy, nice guy and everything, and his son was nice, but we had only brought 3 apiece for the car. The guy was not moving on the price, no matter what I did. So I was like, well, let me go to a nearby ATM. I think because I was like, you know, trying to work the deal out.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, I'm not moving on price. I'm like, fair. I will get you your $500. I'm not letting this car walk over $500.
Yeah.
The nearest ATM was inside the gun show. So we walk in there, and there's just like all kinds of guns, like just like rifles, you know, assault rifles, quote unquote, just like AR-15s, like semi-automatic AK-47 style weapons, and just stuff like that. And you know, I just walked right through with the guy's son, and bought the car, or I got the money out and came back out, bought the car. Drove it 2 hours and 15 minutes back to 312 Motors. Shout out to 312 Motors again for storing the car for us, helping us ship it back to Illinois. But that was the pickup and purchase process. We owned the car for about 3 months. Then it came time for Cars and Bids.
Why did you choose Cars and Bids?
Because we felt that the target demographic of the vehicle, of the age bracket, would care about this sort of thing.
Right.
And
well, I agree with you. I'm just curious about why.
Yeah. So, and we also, I had recently had met ups with somebody who got me connected, and was able to get me in direct contact with somebody at Cars and Bids, and kind of not really accelerate the process, but they were able to get me a lot of information. So I was very pre-prepared for my listing.
Okay.
So I had everything off the gun. So I had submitted everything in one go, and it was just like a neat, organized thing. They were able to schedule me within a week.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, that was great turnaround time. Like, definitely. So then the car goes live.
Right.
And it was going good. There was a lot of positive comments. Then I got a comment from a guy named Jake. And Jake is the original owner of the car. He was under the impression that I told him I would not sell it.
So this is who you bought it from? So
Correct.
You bought it from the original owner?
The original owner of the vehicle. He said, do not bid, do not, you know, this guy took advantage of a nice old man who just wants his car back. And by the way, he had my phone number, my personal phone number. He could have called me or texted me anytime. He never did it. He saw that I would be making money on the car that he kept so well, like in such nice condition, to be fair. So I can understand the emotional attachment, but he made a consensual transaction, a legal transaction with me, transferred the title. I paid him the money he was asking for.
Yeah.
I may have tried to argue the price down a few $100s, but that was it. And then I agreed on his asking price. We spent all the time and money shipping it here, advertising it correctly with good photographs.
Yeah.
More than acceptable photographs.
You got a personal shout out from Doug.
Oh, that was cool.
On your photographs. He's like, these are better than the stock images of the car.
Yeah,
and I saw that. I read that and I was like, God, Tim.
Well, I appreciate it. It was funny because I had that was like a lot of the comments were the photos.
Yeah,
I had people in the comments that were
which
like,
you do amazing work.
Well, I appreciate
I said in your intro that you're the Midwestern Larry Chen. I mean, you knock it out of the park.
I personally believe that title goes to Jeremy Cliff, but that's because he's big time and does crazy stuff for Audi, and like he's like, in my opinion, he's the
For
best.
my money, you're number one.
Money, you're number one. I appreciate it. I've always tried to maintain like attainability too, and like get a lot for your money. And yeah, that might stress me the hell out a lot with like how much I'm working myself. But you know, it does have its repercussions. But at the same time, I'm kind of developing like a good market for myself.
So you have these awesome photos, and Jake starts texting you about.
Yeah, well, he didn't text me.
Sorry, he starts commenting on the Cars and Bid.
Right. Yeah.
Page,
on the listing,
which is kind of wild that the listing has comments,
and they're still up. And to be completely honest with you, there was nothing that was wrong with him mentioning how much I paid for it or anything. I personally, and this is, I don't think anyone from Cars and Biz is going to listen to this, but if they do, I am very turned off from selling a vehicle through that page again when they allow comments like that to stay up. They were not positive. They only deleted the ones that were directly calling me names. I think maybe they knew to my benefit that a lot of people that were replying to the comments saying, hey, it's a free market, he can do what he wants, and all the comments were saying, hey man, that sucks, get over it.
Yeah.
It was funny how quickly his situation turned, because only him and his friends were on his side. It wasn't like, and he was like, oh, I'm going to win my car back. Or someone was commenting on his behalf and said he's going to win his car back. And all of that effort, all for it to come down to the final minutes, and he jumps in at the last 5 minutes saying, hey, this is the price you bought the car for. I think that he did not know what no reserve meant. By the way, we had it listed for no reserve, which meant it sold for what it sold for. We wanted to generate a ton of excitement for the car.
Right. And from what I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, Cars and Bids kind of not pushes you, but strongly recommends going no reserve.
Yeah, because the turnover or the rate that they get, you'll never get that under price. And from our experience, in my opinion, so the car sold for $94, and from my opinion, which is weird because the guy didn't end up bidding on it at all, because I think he thought it was going to no sale.
Yeah.
And then it sold right in front of him, which was kind of funny. But to be fair, because he comes in here like saying all this stuff, and it's like, he had my number. He never texted me. He never called me. It was not about the car. It was about the money. It was about the money. And at the end of the day, he doesn't have his car.
Yeah.
And that sucks for him. And I really did not, it was really not meant to be any hard feelings. I was taking a huge amount of risk trying to bring this to a better market.
But even if you didn't end up selling it, if you did keep the car and garage keep it, whatever, he would have never seen that car ever again anyway.
I mean, he was kind of, I think, expecting the deal to be open-ended where he could buy the car back from me at some point.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because his wife was like technically making him like list it, because he's like building a Mustang or something.
Okay.
But hey, Jake, you'll probably listen to this at some point. I'm sure someone will send this to you. It was no hard feelings, man. But as soon as you started to mess with me about money, it's kind of game over. Like, you had the chance to bid on your car, and that's that. It's gone. Yeah. So that's something I'll have to live with. But we made money on the car, not as much as I had expected for the amount of work that we had to bring it here, kind of fixing it, Jake, because it wasn't perfect as advertised. So our whole experience with the car was awesome. We loved it. We drove it 1,000 miles. We put about 1,000 miles on it. Man, I loved every second of that car. So underrated.
When I reviewed it, and like seeing you drive it, I mean, you really lit up. And which is interesting because you've driven a lot of high horsepower stuff, a lot of exotic stuff.
More fun than a lot of the expensive stuff.
Yeah, because it's fun, it's chuckable. It almost has like a golden retriever type feeling about it, as opposed to these, high class, expensive cars.
I think it's because the priority for those cars have become so much more about the performance instead of the experience. And that's just an example that I have across so many cars. But like, that car was so much fun. Yeah. And if money truly was no object, I would have kept it, because there's nothing like getting in that thing and turning on or just getting in its slam shifting gears. But like, why am I always drawing the blank of the name of it's like getting in there and blasting like the Offspring or something and pretending I'm like from the era of the car when it was new. Just fucking start slamming gears. I'm just like, I feel like I'm like some crazy pizza delivery driver in 07, like that got this as a hand-me-down from his dad and he's in college or something. It's like got that total like college car, like tuner racer boy vibe.
It was a very when I drove it, it was a good I guess when I want to say showing of the era, or like it was very much in early 2000s tuner. I owned the DVD of all the Fast and Furious movies. I have a poster of it. All of that stuff. It was very much
I dream of entering my turbo Sentra into the Gumball 3000 one day. Yeah. But as far as like, it was like a total street scene tuner car, totally indicative of the era. The fact that like the floor mats were still in the original plastic, the seats were under covers for 10 years. Like, there's just unbelievable preservation. And the next owner, man, and I won't even be mad if you try to make more money on the car. I think there's more money in it. 100%. He got that car for a deal.
Yeah.
And if I have any regrets, it's not going to bring a trailer with it, because I realize that there is more money in bring a trailer.
Interesting.
That for cars that need a proven market. There was no proven market for our car. And Cars and Bids has set market prices before on things.
Yeah.
They have set record prices.
100%.
And that's why I went with Cars and Bids. But I think for that car, I think it would have been a smash hit on Bring a Trailer. With the advertising that we did and everything, and how honest I was about the condition of things, I think it would have gone for more.
I think it is an interesting difference in Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids. I feel like Cars and Bids does skew younger because of Doug's following. It's a younger audience,
right?
And a lot of people follow Doug because they love these sorts of cars, and he only does stuff from the 80s and up. So that sort of builds its own younger market, which arguably younger markets don't have as much money as older markets.
100%.
Like Bring a Trailer would. So I would be very curious to see what it would make on Bring a Trailer, but obviously it's out of your hands at this point.
I just think there's more people, there's more guys with a lot more to prove on Bring a Trailer.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we misstepped.
Yeah. Because
Bring a Trailer is a phenomenal platform for established markets.
Right.
That is my personal opinion. Their communication was great.
Yeah.
They did everything right. They were
Cars and Bids?
Cars and
Okay,
Bids.
yeah.
Their communication was fantastic. They got me in super early. They were very communicative. My only gripe is that they just left those comments up, and I think that could have hurt our price a little bit.
Does Bring a Trailer have comments? I've never really.
They do. They're very far.
Okay.
They're but they're very old school forum type of style. And it's just like, dude, man. Sometimes it's like I can't deal with Bring a Trailer style.
Yeah.
It's just so old. But it's like you got to deal with it though, because that's where the damn money's at. You know what I mean? Like, and if that was our end goal, like, you know. People can say I'm shallow for what I did for buying the car. But the way I see it is it was me or someone else I was making the money, and I decided it was going to be me. And if it was at the expense of someone who didn't understand how to advertise or market the vehicle, and they say old man, but it's not like he was like an 80-year-old guy. He was like 50. Yeah. You have the internet, man. Yeah. You have access. You should have some familiarity with how to advertise. Yeah. And he didn't do it. So that was a phenomenal learning experience. And I am kind of doubling down on Nissan as an investment brand.
I was going to ask you if it soured you on buying and selling cars.
No.
If that's something
definitely
you do
not
want to continue to
because
do.
I've got a lot of connections with, getting good deals. And there was one that was kind of in the mist. And to be honest with you, I think it's toast. I had an off-market AMG car that was so underpriced. And I'm really kind of mad that it's probably going to go to the guy's friend after all. Because at the end of the day, now it doesn't come down to money. If he's underpricing it and he's going to sell it to his friend, it's not about money.
Right. So
it's like
the car sells on Cars and Bids.
Yeah.
What's that backhand like? How do you get payment? How did they get picked up? What was that like?
I actually forgot that this is probably one of the more funny parts of the story.
Well, this is the part that I don't know. I knew up until I remember you messaged me when it sold, and we chatted a little bit, but I don't know anything past that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing. The guy texts me right away when he wins, because he gets my contact info when you win, when you're the winner. He's like, here's the contact info of the seller. And he goes, hey, I won. And I'm like, sweet, let me give you a call.
Yeah.
And he goes, calls are kind of expensive where I'm at right now. I'm like, he goes, I am in the military. I am stationed in Kuwait, and I will not be in the U.S. for at least another week and a half or two. This read like a Craigslist scam.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, if this isn't real, this is going to be, I got to relist the car or sell it to the next guy. And I'm just like, God, like, this is annoying.
Okay. I don't know anything past that. Okay.
But I did some research on the guy just through some public pages and like Facebook and stuff. And I looked and I made sure to go like really far back in his account. He's a real guy. He was a real guy. He was like, I need the car shipped to Texas, but I need you to ship the title to Ohio because I'm going to be coming back from Kuwait landing in Texas station, and my friend will be picking me up, and he's going to take delivery of the car. I'm like, this is weird. I'm like,
Yeah.
but fuck it. If you get the car and I get the money, I get the money, then you get the car.
Yeah.
Screw it. You do whatever you want, man.
Yeah.
You can send it to Kuwait if that's what you want to do, right?
That would be kind of funny. But yeah.
But it was real. Ended up being completely real. It just sounded like a total Craigslist game because this guy's like, I'm from the military and I'm in Kuwait and I won the car. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? And he could only text me like 3 hours at a time within the day because he's in the military.
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah.
God.
My military friends.
He's like, when I'm back on base, can't have the phone. I'm like, God damn it.
Right.
I just made things very slow because I'm like, if I'm on the phone with you, I can relay all of the text information to you in a phone call that lasts 10 minutes.
Right.
But ended up being days of texting because of it.
So was it a direct deposit for the money or?
Yeah, he did a direct wire transfer to my account.
Was that? Did you two decide that together, or is that
Yep.
ran through Cars and Bids?
Cars and Bids does not handle the financials.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
When you put a 10% or I think 5% deposit down on your bid, on your credit card, they only hold that deposit amount. That they don't charge the full amount to your card. It's just the deposit amount.
Right.
And they take that deposit as their payment for the service.
So I think as of right now, it might be over in December. They were doing free listings for a little while.
They're forever.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Unless they stated otherwise, they are doing free listings forever.
Nice.
We didn't pay anything to listen. That was another great thing too.
Yeah.
And like I said, the communication was great. My only gripe is that they just left Jake's darn blasted comments.
Which I also understand from that perspective. I'm sure they had a million other auctions going live.
But they said that there
should be some type of filter.
They said that they had someone on the case.
Wow.
They had like a case open for like those comments.
Yeah.
And they left them up. And I was just like, that really frustrates me that they left those up and they didn't catch on earlier. And I truly think that may have affected our price. And I don't know. Like, that just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Am I likely to use their service again? Absolutely. But that nearly strayed me away from their service. And I would just like to make that very clear that because they left those comments up, it was something I was heavily considering not going through again because it was so, like, I'm not kidding. I was considering taking legal action.
Yeah.
I had consulted with people, and I'm like, then we got to come up with a number amount of how much could he have really affected the auction?
Yeah, at that
and
point.
It gets too messy. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna be petty then, because if he wants to say anything back, I could say, you said this was factual. You cannot prove it. That is slander.
Yeah.
And it's also not just slander. That's libel because you wrote it.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, that's a whole.
That's a whole other like legal.
Well, I mean, just comments in general. I always tell my friends the YouTube comment section is the final real wild west.
Right.
Like, because I'll send them some screenshots of what people say about me, and like to normal people, that's like day ending crawl in bed stuff. But I'm like, I see it every single waking day. It sucks that
you have to The human body was not designed to handle the unfiltered opinions of hundreds of people.
Right. Yeah.
That if you were confronted by those people would never say that to you.
Right. Yeah. And so like I'll have people say like or like ask me like what mean things people comment, and I'm like, I have seen the most vile things written about me in a YouTube comment section, which 9 times out of 10, if I reply or favorite it or whatever, it gets deleted or it gets deleted anyway. But just that becomes the hard thing of like, YouTube allows you to put guidelines into your comment section. So if someone says a word, then it'll reject the whole comment. So you can do buzzwords like typical slander words, whatever it might be. But I also don't do that. I've never set one of those words because I think it's good to have people should be able to voice their opinions. You know what I mean? So it is that fine line of what do you do in that scenario? So
Right.
I think it could have been handled better on a corporate side. But again, I don't know what you really do in that situation. Do you turn off all comments? Do you have filters?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
something
they
of
just
the
should have
sort.
just banned the accounts that were saying that. They didn't do it.
Yeah.
And that guy's going out commenting on stuff now like a normal account.
Yeah.
Like whatever. Like he commented on So I was just like, that just rubbed me the wrong way. So what I mean by petty,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just explaining. I was really not going to do this, and then I'm like, all right, you know what? He pissed me off
Mm-hmm.
considerably. So this is the least I could do. I went with my friend, and I promised him, I said, we're going to go to Gibson's Steakhouse after we sell this car because you trusted me with your money.
Yeah.
It's on me.
Mm-hmm.
That is something like not a lot of friends can do.
Yeah.
Like be okay with giving me several $1,000s
Yeah.
to like, and the fact that we made out on top is like, I'm really happy about that. And I was more than happy to be like, even if we lose, I'm still taking you to go get steak.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you deserve.
That's a lot
like,
to ask of a friend,
Yeah.
and I'm glad it all worked out.
Right, exactly.
Positively.
But I took a picture of our table, and Jake seems to have forgotten that he had my phone number and I had his. So I sent him a photo of dinner, and I said, nothing gave me more pleasure than watching the Sentra leave on a truck to a different owner now. And you could have called me. You had my number, but you tried to mess up my auction. And for that reason, because someone commented hashtag justice for Jake, I said,
I saw that. Yeah.
So I said, and for that reason, hashtag justice for Jake paid for tonight's steak. Thanks so much. And that's what I texted him. That's
Did
the last thing
he
I
ever
ever
reply?
said. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's
super petty, I know, and not professional, but like I was just feeling, I'm like, you know what, dude, I just had a beautiful dinner.
Yeah.
I feel great.
Mm-hmm.
God, I need to go back.
Yeah.
Gibson's is so good.
Oh, wow. I've actually never been.
Oh my God, it's phenomenal. But it's just like, I was feeling it. I'm like, screw it. And yeah, like I said, it's a bit petty, and I don't wish to do that to like a bunch of people. Like, but he was like going out maliciously trying to mess up my auction, like.
Yeah.
You know.
So, do you plan on buying more cars like that? Do you
Yeah.
have anything sort of in the chamber
I do.
that you care to talk about? Or
there was an AMG that I was talking about.
Right.
But like I said, I'm doubling down on Nissan.
Okay.
I think it's a very, very underrated manufacturer right now for enthusiast collectible vehicles. They piloted some of the most popular enthusiast cars of the 2000s.
Actually, as of today, my review coming out is a 1993 Nissan Skyline from Japan. It is hands down my favorite review I've ever filmed ever.
Really?
I have been falling in love with that generation of Nissans, like late 80s, early 90s. But go on.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would be sick.
I like literally.
But there's a magic to old Nissans.
There is, to the point where, to be fair, I was down in North Carolina when I did this review, and I was on the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Yeah.
And there are tunnels that go through the mountains, and I am in a nearly straight-piped RB25 DET Skyline.
Nice.
With beautiful suspension setup. It was really mint, and I told the owner when I got back, I was like, when you watch this video, keep it on low volume because your neighbors will think you're watching an adult film, because I am just loving it in the end so much. I have really fallen for Nissans. He also had an 84 Nissan Maxima, which was a straight six rear wheel drive sedan, the only generation of that. I did a 83 Nissan 200ZS imported from Japan, which is a 2-liter V6 turbo, which was amazing.
Wow.
I had that alone on a mountain road.
I didn't know they had a 2-liter V6 in that thing.
Yes. Well, so only in Japan. So here in the States, we got the 300. Which I had that car alone, all to myself, in an abandoned town out in Pennsylvania, which was amazing.
That's pretty
But
wild.
anyway, I've been falling in love with Nissan. So
That's
you've
sick.
been doubling down on...
I'm doubling down on enthusiast Nissans, man. I'm telling you now, look for those like crazy colored coupe 350Zs, the blue or the crazy orange even.
That burnt orange
That's
one
what
of the best colors out of the 2000s.
I couldn't agree more. And man, is that an indicative color of Nissan?
They put it on a couple SUVs.
Yeah.
FXs, I think, the Infinities.
Yep. Yep. And so I'm doubling down on Nissan. I was looking for a low mileage G35 sedan 03 with a manual. Those are impossible to find because I
friend
found
had one. So, really hard to find.
And the reason why is because I talked to my friend who's like a big Infinity like guy. He's like, back in 2015 and 16, there was a trend to buy up these things and drift the crap out of them.
Yeah.
There was like a trend for the sedans and like the V1 or not V1, that's the Toyota. Like the CD109, CD009,
or the CD000A, which is also another variant.
Those are like
of it.
very strong, very well geared transmissions. So they're very desirable. Like, because even for 2JZs, they're very desirable transmissions because they're geared so well. And dude, modern gearing in manuals sucks. It sucks so bad, and it's thanks to California.
Yeah,
but it's not because of fuel economy. It's for noise regulations. They do a dumb test of second gear from a certain speed to another speed at the end of the test, and if it makes too much noise in that time, can't have it. That's why the gear is so long.
Yeah.
It's ruined.
But I agree with you with Nissans. I recently did a HR, so a high revving 2007 350Z. Fantastic car. I've done a 2007 Nismo. Fantastic car. Those go for good money.
Yep.
I think my friend sold it. I want to say 30.
And man, I'll tell you, if you leave the stock exhaust on, they're great.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've done a couple of VQ engines with modified exhausts, and never. It's not a good day at work. But actually, I'll be driving this Friday. We talked about maybe doing some reshoots of the 300.
Oh, okay, right.
The car I'm filming before that is an FX37 we bought down in Atlanta, Georgia, rear-wheel drive SUV with the 3.7.
Nice.
Dude, they're hot cars.
Yeah.
They have heated and cooled seats. They have 360 cameras. They're great.
The thing that I thought that was this is where I think Nissan was such a success in the 2000s. Every single Nissan I have ever been in from the 2000s is freaking loaded to the teeth with options.
Yeah.
Sunroof, heated seats, Sirius XM, whatever. They had everything in those cars, leather, and like really regular cars. And that's why I feel like that was such a smash hit. And then they lost their luster because they'd never updated any of their cars. Yeah. And that's the pitfall. But like, man, I was looking at like a really clean, like yellow or orange Nissan first gen Xterra supercharged V6 with a 5-speed.
Supercharged, yes.
With a 5-speed.
Yeah.
And man, like, dude, get one of those, dude. You're balling.
Yeah.
In that, like, to me, they're the most underrated collector of cars.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm doubling down on Nissan. Also looking for Ultima SER manual.
Yeah.
Because people forgot about those too.
Would be, they
stuffed the V6 in the Ultima.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've seen one of those in person.
Well, if I get one, you'll review it.
I'm
telling you, if I get one, it'll be the nicest one you'll ever see.
I especially would really want you to get Xterra supercharged. They actually so when I went out and filmed that 200ZS with the 2-liter turbo V6, I actually borrowed that from a Z shop. It's called Xenon Z Car out in Pennsylvania. Shout out to Joe. He's just a guy that loves Z cars and works on Z cars. It's actually a very common swap to put that Xterra engine into a Z car because it's 0.3 bigger of displacement because it's a 3.3 instead of the 3-liter VG. It's still a VG.
You can actually work on it.
True. And and with the supercharger bolts right on, they just port the supercharger, make really good power, and they're really reliable.
That's pretty crazy.
So I recently found out they put that in the Frontier a little bit too.
Really?
Someone emailed me from California. They have a supercharged Frontier. So I would love to see that.
That, and I was also on a bit of a binge of looking for the V8 powered Kia Borrego SUVs.
They put V8s into those?
Yeah, they're the 4.6 Tau motor from that, like, that you find in like the 4.6 engines and like the later Hyundais. And
I had no idea.
Yeah, but there was the K500 was not the only, or K900 I think.
Yeah,
was not the only V8 Kia. You could get a Kia
underrated car, by the way.
Yeah, and you could get and this is the problem. They announced the Kia Borrego in like 10 or 09.
Yeah,
and it was a V8 4-wheel drive SUV. Dude, when gas is expensive and there's an economic crisis, that ain't working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was bad timing, the Borrego. Actually, my friend works at a Kia dealer, and he recently, a Borrego got brought in.
Is it a V6?
I think so.
Yeah,
It
they're
was
hard to
just
find in
whatever, yeah.
V8s, but if you can get one in like orange or something, because they had like
Yeah.
that almost Nissan-esque orange.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? How would this not be some weird value retending kind of car that you could maybe prove a market on? Like my thing is, I'm trying to find cars that don't have a proven market and try to prove that they are going up. And that's
there's definitely a fun in that, and also it reminds me heavily of. Mercedes had their version of the Chrysler Pacifica. It shared a platform. I forget what it was called, but they put a V8 into it. They made an AMG of it. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So, like that minivan-looking Mercedes from the mid-2000s?
Oh, yeah.
I'm forgetting the name of it now.
I don't remember.
It was like an R63 or something.
Oh, the R63 AMG? Are you talking about Chrysler's version?
No, I'm talking about the Mercedes version.
Yeah, the R63 AMG.
Yeah, that was the V8 like minivan kind of,
right?
Those
have already just been unobtainium.
Oh, really?
And like values is just like insane.
SRT6 Chrysler Crossfire, though.
I was thinking about those too.
3.2
My
liter
biggest problem
supercharged.
is they never came, and I think this is a death wish of collectibles. They never came in stick.
Yeah,
I think
that is true.
And it's a bit different for SUVs because I think automatic SUVs have gone up in value in quite some way too. So there are exceptions to the rule. That might be one. I missed out on a $6,000 manual Crossfire in Wisconsin.
Really?
And it was 70,000 miles.
I just drove one this summer. It was a white. It was automatic. It was, I think, a base.
It's a very car.
Yeah. It was just like it was. It was a fine car.
Someone needs to Hellcat a Crossfire already.
Oh God. Someone Hellcatted a. I love how that's a verb now. Hellcatted a Plymouth Prowler.
Yeah, and the biggest issue with those is people have been trying to stuff V8s in those for years, but the chassis twists immediately.
Yeah, I want to drive one of those really, really bad. That is one of the most outlandish designed cars I think of the last 20, 30 years.
I couldn't agree more. I think they're going to go up in a big way. And yeah, the driving experience isn't all that special, but like you've seen Tyler Hoovie's garage, they supercharged one.
Yeah.
Man, that thing rips.
Yeah.
I want that.
And also like that's also a car that like
supercharging
honestly,
anything, by the way, makes anything cool.
Yeah.
Superchargers are just the coolest. But anyways,
that's definitely I just feel like the Prowler was a car you bring to cruise nights and you get a milkshake on Thursday, Friday night, whenever it is, and you get a hot dog for $1.50 and you go home and then you leave it in the garage for the next 7 days until you take it out for cruise night again.
Yeah.
I never thought that I don't think a Prowler would be fun to drive. But it would be fun to say I've driven a Prowler.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know, man. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I think if I had like a purple Prowler, I would supercharge it, man. And I would just have a blast.
Did they sell them in Plum Crazy or no?
Yeah, not Plum Crazy, but like a purple variant. Yeah.
That's a whole interesting era because like I forget what they call it. It's like the postmodernism or something.
Yeah,
the
where
PT Cruiser was trying to be retro.
Yeah, the retro-esque throwback, the comeback era. What's funny is it nearly died until Ford brought out the Mustang and then re-jump-started it again.
That's true. But like, no one else really hung on to it all that much.
Ford.
Here's the thing. I've always said this. I think 50% of Ford Mustang sales right now are just nostalgia based.
Mm-hmm.
I think that car is not super competitive. Besides the GT350, besides the GT500, the regular Mustang, I think 90% is like people who grew up always wanting a Mustang and now they can afford the payments of one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true. Not because they're any better than the competition. I honestly think right now the like non-super performance version muscle cars, I think the Camaro is my favorite for the money.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't deny a Hellcat and you can't
I
deny...
actually couldn't agree more. Objectively, the best choice is the Camaro.
Yeah.
The best chassis, you have the best equipment. I just think they're kick ass.
Yeah.
And I would be on my way to buy one and go, God damn it, I need to get a Challenger, and just that's the Mopar in me. And it's just like
the Mopar is just slowly reeling you.
You can do so much more modification wise. They'll be more reliable. They'll hold more value in the end.
Yeah.
But I gotta get the Scat
It's like
Bed.
that Jeremy Clarkson quote where he's like, "This is the best, but I like this."
Yeah.
You know, the Camaro is the best car, but I think at the end of the day, like I might take a Hellcat just to be dumb.
I was grilling my friend for wanting a G8. And
I would love a G8.
Yeah, but I keep grilling them, so I'm like, dude, they're not interesting. They're the most corporate muscle car recipe of all time.
Yeah.
Cylinder deactivation LS in a corporate body shell and a very Pontiac-ish interior.
Yeah.
And
you know they sold those with V6s?
Yeah, I do.
I did not know that until one came up at Chevy of Naperville.
The ones to go for the GT or the GXPs.
Right,
the GTs only came in auto, but you had a really strong 6R80 automatic gearbox, so the motor and the trans could hold a ton of power.
Yeah.
The GXPs were just dope because you got an LS3, 6-speed manual, limited slip diff.
Right.
Those were
I
just
didn't even know they came in V6s. And when I used to drive my Pontiac G6, shout out to whatever pile that thing is in, people used to always say, is that a G8? And I'm like, no, which made me laugh. But I'm like, I feel so bad for the G8 owner that's now like, oh, is that a G6?
I couldn't live that life, man.
Yeah.
I just, like, I mean, it'd be funny. I mean, I'm not
Heaven forbid you get mistaken for a G3. You ever seen a G3?
I have, unfortunately.
I reviewed one. It was one of 600 made.
What about the G? Is it the G? What's that really pointy nose GX? This is the G. I think it's the G6 GXP. Remember that?
Oh, with the terrible body kit.
Oh yeah, it was just like fucking.
Yeah.
Oh
like, man,
it was Sir Bottom Tooth.
It might have been designed by Roush.
Okay, well,
I went to the Roush Museum. Shout out to the Roush collection up in Michigan. It's a free collection. And I walked in, and there's a brand new Ford GT, and they had a mint DeLorean there, and they had Model A's, Model T's. They had the first electric car, and then they had a bright sun yellow Pontiac G6 with the body kit on it, and it was specially designed by whoever, Jake Roush or whatever the guy is. He's special, and they had banners up of this Pontiac G6, and I'm like, why? But
that's pretty incredible.
We're now entering the obscure GM car category.
I have a guilty pleasure.
Oh God!
I thought if I could just go over this. There's one car I've always liked, and everyone hates it, and I would kill for one.
Okay.
I want a Chevy SSR. Okay, the pickup truck, the retro style.
Oh.
Okay, but hang on.
Okay.
There's a sweet spot. The SSR with the 6-liter. Because they only came in the 5.3 to start. You could only get the 5.3 in an auto, which was not good. But you could get a 6.0, so LS2, and an SSR with a stick. A 6-speed manual LS2 and a convertible. God, there is nothing more I want in the world right now than a... You good?
Yeah. Sorry. It's just a random ass text.
There's nothing more in the world that I want right now than a 6-liter, 6-speed manual, purple convertible pickup truck.
You know, I
want that so bad.
It's so funny. I almost brought it up earlier in the podcast when you were talking about your car overheating.
Yeah.
I've only overheated one car on a review.
Is it SSR?
It's Chevy SSR. I was reviewing it. It had to have been. It was like a spring month.
It was a 5.3, wasn't it?
It was an 05. It was red. It was automatic. I don't remember if it was the 5. I think it had to have been the 5.3.
Dude,
it had to have been.
I want the 6.0 stick purple so bad. They're so rare probably.
Yeah.
But dude, I would kill.
So
imagine saying I have a 6-speed manual, 6-liter V8
truck,
purple convertible pickup truck.
Yeah.
My God, is that the flex of all?
So time. I was out on the shoot, why am I blanking on the name? The test track. The Naperville dealership test track.
Right.
And I'm driving it around. It's fine. You know, it's whatever. And I talked about in the video, I'm like, this is I feel like for people who kind of want that hot rod experience, but it's a very much tamed. It's a very much reeled in hot rod experience.
Right.
You can take it to a show. People are going to oogle and ogle over it, at least a little bit.
It's indicative of the era with none of the drawbacks of cars of the era.
However, I pull over to start filming the interior. I'm filming the steering wheel and the radio, and I look up, and it's pegged at 250.
Oh, for coolant temps?
For coolant temps.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God. So I started driving it again, and the coolant temps went back to the middle. It was like 200 or 210, whatever the sitting temperature was at. And I was like, okay, this is weird. So then I pull over again, start filming more, and I'm looking, and every time I look up, it's like one of those SpongeBob memes or something. Every time I look, like the needle was a little bit further.
Oh my God.
So I would take some video, because what you don't really want to do is shut it off, because then it'll heat soak.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm doing laps, stop, film, doing laps. And I'm like, this is really the real hot rod experience.
It is.
Because, like, if you've
Chevy
ever owned...
was so ahead of their time.
It was one of the features to the point where there's probably about like a city block, but like 2 blocks between the test track and the dealership. And so I'm sitting. I pull the car out of the test track and I'm driving on the regular road back to the dealership, and I'm about I'm sitting in the left lane to turn left to go back to the dealership, and that needle's moving, and I'm like, oh my god. So what I did is I got out of the left lane, just took a right, and I went 2 blocks down, 2 blocks back, 2 blocks all the way around, just so I could only make right turns to keep the car moving. And it ended up moving back to 200 degrees or whatever, and I put it back, and I walked in, and I'm like, there is something seriously wrong. I think the fans weren't turning on, so when it was sitting there, it was just soaking in its own heat with no air moving through it. Because as soon as I got it moving, it would calm right down. So I walked in, I'm like, there is something really wrong with this truck. And they're like, oh, okay. Which is interesting because then it was sold, it was off the lot, and it showed back up a couple weeks later. Oh. And I was like, that's a warranty right there, my friends. Because I believe in Illinois, you have to give a 15-day money-back warranty.
Yeah, guarantee.
On anything, which actually happened. Car I reviewed from another dealer. It was an Audi. I reviewed it. Guy who I actually knew owned the V6 Charger that I reviewed. Small world. He goes and buys that car. The one that I reviewed. Complete drivetrain loss. I think it threw like, I think the diffs blew up or something like that.
Whoa.
So he was like, yeah, I went back and then bought the other car that you reviewed. And I was like, oh, thanks for the double shout out. But sorry you had to go through a Audi drive. I think it was an A7, something, maybe it was an A6. But the all-wheel drive, I think, just completely went.
That's not really surprising.
No. I love Audis. I love driving Audis. But I don't have any need to own one.
Yeah.
My bank account does not have any need to own one.
Yeah, they're just man, they're right in the middle, aren't they? Because I've always chalked this up in 2 ways, like, because of all the brands, like Mercedes definitely has the most electrical problems. BMW has the most mechanical problems.
Yeah.
And Audi's just got both. To be honest,
yeah,
they just really have both in spades. They really
down.
play the centrist position really well in the German market. They just have mechanical.
Yeah,
but that doesn't surprise me, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. So yeah, also another SSR story. I was in Colorado. This was actually, you know what? It might have been the day that I drove to Pikes Peak. The same day. My girlfriend and I went to a cookie place. It was like these boutique cookies, whatever. And parked out front in the handicap spots was 2 SSRs. One in the blue, one in like the aqua green. And they were occupying both handicap spots.
What a surprise.
I had to take a picture. She's like, what? Who cares? And I'm like, that is the most SSR
if
boomer.
You were to sell up a vehicle,
like picture. If I could find the picture, I'll put it in the podcast.
I'm sorry. I would drive a 6-liter one. Like,
100%. I forgot they came with 6 liters.
They're rare. Yeah. They're the very tail end of the production. Like, I would drive a 6.0 manual purple convertible without shame. I would just rock the hell out of that.
You know what other GM rarity I drove the other day, which I don't even know will be out by the time this comes out? I drove a Hummer H3T.
Oh, the trucks.
The truck.
You could get those with the 5.3 in a manual, right?
I don't know. I drove the 5-cylinder. It's an inline 5 3.7.
I think it's called the Adventure.
Yes. Yeah. 3.
The reason I know that is because my mom bought an H3 with that motor, and
really?
And then it immediately got returned because the dealership messed up a timing job.
Oh wow.
Oof. Yeah.
But yeah, it was the 2010, which was like the end of Hummer. Right. They only made 900 trucks that year. So that was just a weird thing. The other weird thing is that the roofline feels chopped. I don't know if you felt that way in the H3, but it felt like the roofline was chopped. The windows are like not big.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, they do. It does look like kind of like a chop top, like some Chip Foose creation. Chip Foose Hummer,
man.
Yeah,
I forgot about him.
I wake up in a sweating fever dream nightmare when I because I was dreaming that my 300 was apparently stolen. Turns out Chip Foose took it and was like, "Come on, see what we did,
dude." How
and I start panicking nervously to come in and see like the chromed out window
They had to have been in on it, right? And that stuff. Like, if someone took my RX-7, even if they did redo it, I would be pissed.
Yeah.
Especially if they're like, "Hey, we painted it blue," or well, it is blue. Sorry, we painted it a dark purple. I'd be like, "Hey, man, I didn't want a dark purple RX-7. I would have bought a dark purple one."
Yeah.
I've always been curious how on those people were, but
yeah. Well, as a whole, other than the oddities that we've discussed, that's kind of the 300, the Sentra, and just kind of the potential flips I've been trying to get into.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing. That's kind of just like a crash course on that stuff, I guess. But
I appreciate you coming on. We are wrapping up here. We're getting towards the time. I did want to say, from our first podcast, you shared that you edit your photos listening to whatever music of that sort of era, and I started doing that with cars I reviewed. And I wanted to tell you, last October, I want to say, I went up to Michigan and I reviewed a 1978 Lincoln Town Car, and I on the way there, I Googled what the top song of 1978, and I believe it was something by the Bee Gees. And I listened to that on repeat, like the Bee Gees on repeat, and it definitely changed my outlook on cars.
Yeah.
Like because it really
can
puts
pull
you
in
into that zone.
Yeah, it can put you in the zone or kind of in like the frame of like, oh yeah, it's cool to think that like this is what someone probably could have been listening to in this car. It just kind of puts you in that era. Admittedly, that hasn't worked for me in a while.
Really? Interesting.
I have been, I don't know, just that maybe I should try it again. Maybe I'll get back in the swing of things. But like editing photos, man, it's been quite an interesting year. This has been probably one of the most stressful years I've ever had. I've admittedly I've overbooked myself, and my return times and photo shoots have not been what I have promised the customers. But I have the most thankful. I'm extremely thankful and very gracious for having the patient, generous, and phenomenal customer base that I do.
Yeah.
Because no matter how long they waited, they got the product and they were just blown away.
Yeah.
And that's what I really am just trying to fix, is just catch up. And I've just been kind of doing some projects. This year's been, a bit odd and with trying to catch up on things, and it's just been an interesting year for many reasons in that field.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything's over. I'm looking forward to 2022. Hopefully everything will sort of be back together, but you never know. Where can people find your work? Where can people find you and all that stuff?
It's Tim Bro Photo on Instagram. I actually did not have my Instagram up for quite some time. Like I had it deactivated, but it's back up. I don't know how often I'll be posting, but you gotta love social media because you post a Chiron, you get quite a few likes. I got to work with a Bugatti, which was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, wait, we totally didn't even talk about that. If you could touch on that real quick, you photographed a Chiron.
Yeah, I did. The guy's name is Steve Hamilton. He owns that Hamilton collection that I think people are very familiar with now on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that shoot, and that experience was very interesting because it really validated the years of work I've put into this. And the people who I have paid me and get my services all the time, those people made this thing worth it to me.
Yeah.
And making those people are happy. But on a personal level,
yeah,
that validated me. Because I'm like, who gets to work with a Bugatti?
Yeah.
Things are different now.
Yeah.
When the page, Steve's collection, becomes a public entity, kind of.
Yeah.
Many people have shot the car now, and it was a bit of a culture shock to me to be like, wow, now anyone can shoot a Bugatti. It's not a big deal anymore. And that's kind of like my, I'm very thankful to Steve for the opportunity still, but admittedly, it didn't seem like it mattered.
Yeah.
After it was over, it didn't seem like it mattered at all. Steve was very thankful for the I sent him the stuff personally, and he was like, these are among the best we've ever had, and he was very thankful, and I'm thankful to Steve for the opportunity.
Right, of course.
And I'm very thankful for my friend Tommy for setting it up and everything like that. But my only thing is that in the quest to become or to share these incredible experiences with people, it slightly devalued the craziness of it. because to me, it's not normal to have a $3 million car.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to work with that literally meant the world. And
Right.
it's, man, I'm in a very weird position because I don't really know what to say here without being, without sounding like a total douche.
I understand definitely what you mean though, and I think it's hard to understand unless you. I think we're very like-minded. We definitely have. We have a product basically, you and I don't want to say that we're artists, but like we don't have like a certain grid line for what we do. I can do a review and just talk about chicken nuggets the whole time, and I could still put that out. You know what I mean? We don't have strict guidelines, and I understand that because there have been cars that I have filmed, and I'm like one of these first reviews for this car, and then a bunch of the other reviews pile in, and it can be validating when people agree with me, and it's not unvalidating when people disagree. Everyone has their own take, but I definitely understand like that sort of personal achievement,
right?
But at the end of the day, I kind of look at it as, well, let's find that next thing, let's capture
100%.
that next moment.
It definitely felt like a mountaintop. And the one thing I'll say that's a little bit unfortunate is the car scene over the past year and a half has gotten a little bit, and I don't mean this literally. I mean, have you ever heard of the term like, office politics? Like who gets a job because this person likes whatever? Yeah. It's like that. Yeah. But that has kind of happened in the car community locally, whether it be with clubs, and can't really talk about that. And the working with the Hamilton collection, because a person that runs their social media now got the job I don't think they like me that much. And because of that, I don't get to shoot their P1. Yeah. I don't get to shoot their Wyra. Yeah. I don't get to shoot anything. But to be honest with you, if it's about letting David Dobrik drive hypercars, and if it's about letting, first of all, sharing the experience is totally fine. Yeah. I don't care. But I just don't know how getting, celebrities to drive cars is like a Chicago community beneficiary. Yeah. I just don't think it helps the community locally at all. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's not my collection. They can do whatever they want. And they're making waves on their own, and that's great for them. And clearly they've made the right choices to do, that's their goal. Yeah. And I don't knock them at all. Yeah. But what I offer is not content. And I think that's what they're looking for to grow their page, which is understandable. I try to offer something more than content that leaves an impact for a long time.
Yeah, that is interesting, is that your work is more, it's very personal. It's very, very personal. And it is something that, it is interesting too, where like I feel like a lot of people don't really want that stuff anymore, where it's like, or like they think that, like content is the most important thing. You know what I mean? Like, I have to get this to share. Well, like I really want a photo of a nice photo of my car I can just hang up in my house. And like, that's for me. That's for me to remember. And you are very, very good at that. You are very, very good at that. You capture automotive moments unlike anyone else.
I appreciate that.
I even think back to when we shot that GT40 continuation.
Oh yeah.
And there was that sofa in the middle of the street that we almost missed.
Yeah, Tofa.
Would've been real bad.
I just said Tofa. My God. Tommy, who helped me get that Chiron shoot from the Hamilton collection, owned the GT40.
Oh, I met him then. He's great.
Tommy's awesome. Tommy is the business. I love Tommy. Yeah. Tommy's sick.
But I remember a quick story. We were in my G6, rest in peace, wherever it is. I think it's somewhere in Aurora. It was at sundown, and we got on the highway, and we're all staring at this GT40 trying to get the right shot. And I'm driving the G6, and I'm looking at my mirrors. There's this beautiful yellow GT40 continuation, which is just, it was one of the coolest sights I've ever seen. It was at sunset, and I'm looking, and then I look up, and there's a sofa perpendicular in the middle of the highway. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And we like darted over, and then did we have someone else in the car?
It was me and Max.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Max was in the car. And I was like, signal him to get over. I was like trying to like get him to get over, because if he hit that, because he was in the other lane.
Yeah.
Thank God he was able to go around it. And then he was very kind enough to give me a ride in that car.
He literally hurt my neck.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't ready for the acceleration. I like pulled a muscle, but
yeah,
we're all good. There's no legal fees or anything.
It was funny because he was like, yeah, none of the instruments light up, so you're driving blind at night. And I've gotten really used to doing that because our Model A, our 1931 Ford, doesn't have any instrument lights at night. And like I'm like so used to it now, to the point where my RX-7 gauge cluster wouldn't work, and I didn't even notice it. But driving, that was like 400 horsepower, or the GT40 something.
No, it was definitely more than 400
was it?
horsepower. It was like 5. I think it made like high force to the tire.
Yeah. Driving that,
it had like a blueprint 5.0 Cobra block.
Wow.
With like a stroker on it, I think.
So a continuation is basically Ford just sold the GT40 chassis, and then you kind of put whatever engine you wanted into it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much. It depends on the company. They'll have like options for you, like Superformance in South Africa. Like they did all kinds of crazy stuff. Like they have I think it's all blueprint type of Ford, because they try to stay as true to the brand as possible. And by the way, just for the record, I think Ford small blocks and big blocks sound amazing.
Yeah.
Especially like racing
I
drive
haven't
ones.
spent too much time with them,
Oh
unfortunately.
my God. I think those are the best sounding old American V8s or
At
Fords.
least straight piped. I've done a couple Lincoln Continentals and stuff from the 70s.
Yeah.
7.5 liter making 7.5 liter making 165 horsepower.
Oh yeah, dude, that's 6.5 to 1 compression ratio, working hard. Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
But yeah, so Tommy's great. I met him, and
he's awesome.
That was a night to remember for sure. I wish we could do more of that.
Definitely.
But yeah, definitely go check out Tim's Instagram. It'll be in the description below. How else can people contact you?
Really, I'm gonna be honest. That's really my main method right now.
Okay.
You can reach out to me on timbrophotography@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can, I have a Facebook page also for Timbro Photo.
Mm-hmm.
I have a personal Facebook, but realistically, if you want to reach out to me, those are the ways.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's
well, cool. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories, and I look forward to whatever you pick up next.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.